Welcome to The Pin Down, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything from the Pistons to the NBA Draft and the Motor City Cruise.
Man, I love in the live comment section, we got started here with the live show just a couple minutes late, but now this has been the case with the Pistons Pulse too. Anytime we get just a couple minutes late, we're not right on time when it all starts up. We just get are you stuck in traffic? Is Tom Gore's not there yet, not ready to go? And I love it. I think it's hilarious. It makes me laugh every time, so keep that up. It brings a smile to my face.
Hey, I have to say was the Trajan Langdon introductory presser where everyone was an hour late and traffic was the issue, so it was said, but the chat in the live YouTube stream was like the most fun I've had in a long time. That was like the highlight of the whole presser for me.
Was it really? I wasn't following the comment section all that much. All I know is that we really did hit a new era when they did the head coach presser, and that started right on time. Because when that happened, I actually planned an extra couple of minutes, and I came to the live stream late, and I went, "Oh crap! I got to go and rewind now."
Yeah, a YouTube user brings up the 4:30 a.m. hugs, which Tom Gore has brought up between him and Trajan. One too many times for comfort, but no, the chat in the hour long wait, there were Jared Goff chants going and everything. It was just awesome. It was just all good vibes and fun stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Well, all right, so we got a few games here to talk about for the first time in a while.
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt, Wes, but we have to. You're recording from overseas, so you gotta give the people what's going on, and at least just a shout out for your dedication. You're probably 6 hours ahead. It's probably 12:31 in the morning where you are right now.
Yeah, it's 12:30, so we're over in London. I was gonna get there. I was gonna say that we haven't gotten a chance to talk about the summer league games yet because I didn't buy international data or anything. I've been very locked into Wi-Fi. Otherwise, I'm entirely disconnected, which has been good and bad. Saved a few bucks though, which was nice. But yeah, so we're doing my wife and I the full 2-week long gallivant, doing a couple locations. This is essentially the honeymoon trip that we didn't get to do right after our wedding. So yeah, thank you for the shout out. It's been a lot of fun.
That's good. Yeah, you gotta enjoy it, and shout out to you for recording and watching summer league basketball when you're on a vacation like that. That's something.
I wouldn't miss those games. I got Fubo TV though, and it wasn't working internationally, so I've had to find some exciting workarounds to that. So that's been interesting. But you know what? We're good. We've watched the games. They've been entertaining. I got to say, I've been pretty entertained outside of the first one. First one was a little bit rough. May have napped through part of that after all the jet lag situation. But now, we're good. And the next two games after that were a pretty good show.
Yeah. The first game was a little rough. And then the second game, Ron Holland sat because it was the front end of a back-to-back. So that was a little disappointing. But the Pistons did win that second game. So just to recap, the Pistons lost their opener in Vegas 94-81 to the Sixers. They followed that up with a win over the Houston Rockets 87-73. And then the day after that, they came back and beat the Bulls 85-77, where Ron Holland did play, and he beat his former G League Ignite teammate in Modest Buzelis, which was an interesting storyline to watch.
Yeah, and there have been quite a few, I would say, bigger overarching storylines out of those first three games. So I just wanted to throw it to you. Where do you want to start? Because we could go anywhere from Ron Holland to Klintman to the Jenkins to undrafted guy, even Marcus Sasser. There's quite a bit to talk about.
Ron Holland is the logical place to start, but let's just Bobi Klintman has been a big talking point, and he's looked good. He's showcased pretty much exactly what you want him to bring to the team immediately. Yes, he still has some work to do. He likely won't contribute to the rotation right away. He'll probably get a ton of reps in the G League, presumably, but he's looked good. One thing that stuck out to me from him is his passing. I mean, he's probably never going to be a primary or secondary playmaker, but to have a guy like that on the wing who can do some drive and kicks or make some cool passes in the short roll, I think we have seen the potential that he has and why he was targeted with that second round pick that the Pistons traded up for.
Yeah, no, I've been really impressed as well. Mimic, I think. No, Chili Damon mentions in the chat the passing has been really good. I think his positioning on defense has been really solid as well, which is always nice to see in the summer league. There's not always a ton of defense that gets played. Some teams do. The zone this year has been a really interesting subplot from other teams, not as much the Pistons. And I don't know what all that's about, but that's been interesting to see. Regardless, Bobi Klintman's position on defense and his passing have really stood out well to me. I do think, like you said, and like a YouTube user brings up, he pretty much just looks like his tape from the NBL because all those limitations that he had, they're still there. You know, you don't really want him dribbling the ball all that much, creating for himself. That is, he could play out of a catch and go, but not much more than that. And I think the athleticism is still a little bit of a concern for me. I think when he does, to me, I think he's a guy that's going to benefit a little bit from the G League time that you and I both expect him to get, because that quickness of play jump from summer league to the NBA is pretty large. And I do wonder if, just with his athletic limitations, if that's going to be more of a challenge for him right out of the gates. So I'm still not like convinced he's 100% day one ready for minutes, but it's really impressive and intriguing the success he's had in summer league.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at too with I mean, he comes out and puts these performances up in summer league, which is obviously exciting. It's the only thing we're watching right now. And I think he could do okay in spot minutes here and there. I'm really interested to see what, if any, like minutes he gets once the regular season gets going. It's almost like where the Pistons are, I don't think it's a bad thing to throw him into the fire immediately. It's just almost a numbers game with the transactions that they've made. Like, I don't really see where Klintman gets in, which is okay. It's not like the end of the world, but hopefully if he is at the end of the bench, he is or the team is like leveraging the G League to get him some solid reps.
Yeah, he's exciting because I think he's in a situation right now where he's almost a luxury good for the Detroit Pistons. They've got pretty good depth at the forward spots and definitely at the 5 spot as well, which if he bulks up a little bit, I think Klintman could get a little bit of small ball 5 minutes here and there if he wanted to do that. But he's in a position right now where you can take it real slow with him. You could have him in the G League. You could have him playing spot minutes. And then if like Fontecchio or Star Thompson get hurt and miss some time, then you've got this guy that's like right on the cusp of, or looks like he's right on the cusp of being a legitimate rotation level NBA player already. He's just waiting in the wings, developing and working on his game more, right? So it's just like Mimic mentions, that's a luxury that this team hasn't had in a while. And it's really nice to have it with a high second round pick like this too, which is something that the team's kind of struggled with, to find gems in the second round.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think if Langdon hits with this second round pick of his tenure, like that's already not making up for a lot, but it's a good sign moving forward in terms of drafting ability, and I guess just making the most out of those picks, because like even if you have second rounders, we know they acquired a few through the Tim Hardaway trade, like, and if you end up making those picks, teams are going to want them. They're going to want to get the draft rights to whoever. So I think it's really a positive. And just with Klintman, like I love his size too. I think at the combine, he measured like 6'8" and some change without shoes. So he's like 6'9", maybe even 6'10" once he's on the court. And I feel like just having a wing forward like that, that can shoot the ball and do some other stuff, hopefully, is a huge luxury. And hopefully he's an impactful player on the rotation eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's just such a need in the NBA right now to have a guy that size who can shoot and who can move his feet on defense. And it looks like they've got one that's kind of almost ready made. Just needs a little bit of polishing and refining, which is exciting. Before we move on, I did want to just give a shout out to Bullvine in the DBB comments, who basically asked the question we just answered, and we didn't read it out. We just kind of naturally fell into it through conversation. So he said, with the lack of depth at 4, how many minutes do you think Bobi will get? And we kind of touched on that. He's going to have, more emergency minutes than anything else. So I was really curious. I wanted to ask you about 2 players. One, obviously, Ron Holland. So we can start there, number 5 overall pick. But then right after that, Marcus Sasser. I really wanted to get your thoughts on Sasser. So we got to hit on that as well.
Oh, man. Do you want to start with Sasser or do you want to start with Holland?
No, we should get Holland out of the way, because if we have to skip something, it should be Sasser. We got to talk Ron.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I think we've seen what we almost could have expected with Ron. Just to read off some numbers, in his first game against Philly, he was 5 for 15 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, 15 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, 3 stocks, and then after he missed the game against Houston, when he came back against the Bulls, he was 7 for 20 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, 17 points, 9 boards, 3 assists, and a steal. In the Bulls game in particular, I believe he was like 3 for 13 from the field in the first half. So I think we've seen his aggression, and I mean, he definitely was like forcing some stuff, and we saw some of the decision making we want to see get polished up, but you just see how quick he can get out in transition. We obviously know that the shot is still a work in progress, but I don't know. I thought that Summer League was sort of Holland's area or context where he could explode, and I think just because the games don't technically matter, like, we may see him taking some shots that he probably wouldn't in a game context, but the decision making alongside the shot is one of the big things for him to polish up. And honestly, I don't think Holland is going to have a huge role in the rotation in his rookie year. So hopefully that's something he works alongside and not like high pressure scenarios that cost you games or anything. So in short, really, I think we've seen what you can almost, or what we should have expected from Holland.
Yeah, and you mentioned actually before the Summer League games started up that make or miss doesn't matter as much in this kind of context, and he's definitely been off. So like YouTube user just said, you can see the good with the bad. I definitely agree with that. I would say part of his struggles have been the lack of spacing, which feels like a broken record to say after the season the Pistons just had last year. But the most recent game against the Bulls, I think at one point the team was 1 of 9 from 3, and the one make was Ron Holland's. It's not for lack of shooting. They were putting up the shots. They just weren't going down. So Ron Holland has been dealing with a constricted court. That's not really helped him. That's not necessarily to excuse a lot of the decision-making issues. Those have flashed pretty consistently. I think the bigger thing that I've been a little bit surprised about was just how right-hand dominant he's been and how that's gotten him into some trouble. There's one specific play, I believe it was in the first game, where he catches it in the left corner, and the defender's just riding his right hip. He still tried to drive that way instead of taking the baseline. Almost every finish he's had has been with the right hand. He's been very leaned on that, and I think it's kind of gotten him into some trouble. The more I've been noticing it, the more I seem to see defenders sitting on that hip of his. So I almost wonder if this is just the first time in his young career that he's encountered defenders athletic enough to actually successfully keep him from going right. Because that's a thing. Like his handle's loose. We knew it was loose. It was going to be loose. It wasn't going to get magically tighter in like 2 months. So he's got a loose handle, and he likes to go and finish strong with the right. So the summer league teams are having their defenders try to take that away, and he's struggling a little bit with the counter. Like I don't know. I don't think it's a big problem long term, but I wasn't necessarily expecting to see that as much. I thought in the G League he finished more evenly than he has so far just through 3 games.
Yeah, it's a good point. And honestly, like part of the reason I thought that Summer League was a good context for Ron is because he played all last season in the G League. Like,
Yeah,
there's a lot of players that spent a lot of time in the G League last year that are on Summer League teams. I mean, there's also NBA guys there, guys that are definitely too good to be playing in Summer League. So there is maybe a little bit higher of a competition level. And like, these games are fast, the G League games are fast. So yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. I mean, like you said, watching his pre-draft season with the Ignite, I didn't think him going left was like a huge concern. Like, it's funny because he
yeah.
gets a ton of Jalen Brown comps. Like, it's not anything close to
Oh no,
Jalen
no, no.
Brown's.
Even this
Yeah,
hasn't been that bad. Like young Jalen
right.
Brown wouldn't even like eat with his left hand. I swear.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's something to monitor. I mean, I know the Pistons have one more like regular season summer league game, which is tomorrow on Friday. So something to keep an eye on there, and then they'll also have another game to finish it out when all like the playoffs and everything is sorted.
Yep.
So definitely something to watch out for.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, for everything that I just said there, the concern with him being a little right hand dominant, all that, you can still see very high upside that he has. Because even with that limitation, that using both hands thing that he struggled a little bit with, there's not really anyone else on this summer league team that creates as much space as he does. Like that is the separator, I think, for him that really, really makes me hopeful for the future of the type of player and the type of scorer he can be. Because even with this, his mid-range shots, it stops on a dime. The defender keeps going. They don't know what to do. He had a nice one against Matas at the elbow, just against the Bulls. Even on drives, he players are bouncing off him. He pretty easily creates space through his Euro step. Like he can just move really, really well, even with the ball in his hands. So I think that that's exciting to watch, and hope should be something to be hopeful of moving forwards.
Yeah, and another thing you brought up was, I guess, the lack of shooting or
Yeah,
spacing in that Houston game. Dennis Jenkins and Bobi Klintman were the only players the Pistons had to make a three. The rest of the roster was 0 for 15. So, and Marcus Sasser, who I know we're going to talk about, was 0 for 5 that game. So I think it is a bit of a matter of like shots not going down elsewhere and just more
yeah.
free, like sloppy play that is hindering everything else.
All right, so let's hit on this question here from Rames, just because we're already talking about it. But he says it seems like Ron Holland will be brought along more slowly this year. Do you agree with that? Or have you seen anything in the Summer League so far to make you think he's ready to contribute early with minutes?
I think he will be brought on slowly, just similar to what I said with Klintman, just a numbers game. Like, I don't think there's any way Ron Holland starts for this team. I'm trying to figure out where he lands in the rotation. I mean, I think he'll play. I just don't know how many minutes he'll get or where he'll land in the rotation. And speaking to what I see in summer league, like, I don't know if this is something that's totally stood out, but if he's able to come in and immediately be a positive perimeter defender at the next level, you kind of have to play that guy, or at least like reward him with some additional minutes. Yes, like the shot is the other thing that is on the other side of that. You want to see how he shoots it out of the gate. I believe when he played against the Bulls, he made his first three that he took, and I was like, all right, that's good to see one go in. And then he missed the other three, which isn't the end of the world, but you just want to see how that comes along, or the work he puts in the summer to see what his shot looks like at the NBA level. Because if he's not going to shoot it, like, you can't play him next to Asar Thompson, you can't play him next to Jalen Duren. So you're trying to manipulate the lineups for a bunch of these different guys. And I think if you also have to manipulate it for Ron right out of the gate, like, that just gets to too much. I mean, you have to play him at least somewhat. I just don't know how much it will be right now.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree with all of that. I mean, at a minimum, he's a guy who plays with a high level of energy. He's a very good athlete. And at least so far in Summer League, the defense has translated almost exactly how I kind of thought it would. He's fallen asleep off ball a few times. He locks in pretty well when he's the better athlete on ball. And then at the same time, he flashes a lot as a like with the free safety type role. He's gotten a few steals, few blocks, looked really good. So you take the real big highs with the lows because he's a 19-year-old kid, and you assume over time it's going to get better because he has that energy and effort. But guys who play like that tend to get minutes in the NBA, especially at the wing position. So I agree. Like, he's going to get brought along slowly. I just always wonder when I get this question, like, what does slowly mean to Rames, who asked it? Because Bobi Klintman's going to get brought along slowly as well, but it's a different type of slowly. Bobi Klintman's probably almost certainly going to get a lot of G League minutes throughout the year. Ron Holland might play a little bit in the G League, but it's more likely that, at least for the beginning of the season, he starts with the main club and is playing a little bit off the bench, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes a night. Sure, if he gets cold, sometime in January, could they send him down for just like a week or two to the G League to, get the confidence back up, get him moving, maybe on a long road trip if he's fallen low on the totem pole for minutes? Like, yeah, absolutely, that could happen. But in terms of like the initial plan, he's going to get brought along slowly, as in he's not going to be, Jaden Ivey starting night one for the Detroit Pistons, or Asar Thompson starting night one, or Cade Cunningham, or Killian Hayes even 4 years ago. Like, he'll be off the bench. So you're looking more at, maybe what Sadiq Bey, I guess, went through when he was a rookie, if you want a direct comparison. It's still possible that if Holland really impresses, he starts by the end of the year. That's on the table. But more than likely, he's going to be a bench player this year. And that's a good thing. It's a luxury that this team has enough wings to be able to do that.
And with the G League, I think of totally different player, but what Jarris Walker was last season in Indiana, who, Wes, I know you're still really high on. He was the odd man out of the rotation. Like, they just didn't really have room for him, and he was the sixth pick. He was down in the G League a decent amount, and even Ben Shepherd, another one of their draft picks, played some time in the G League, and he was playing for them in the playoffs. So I think we are consistently seeing like higher picks play in the G League, not like spending all their time there, but franchises leveraging that opportunity to get them those reps in these situations. I don't think Ron is going to be consistently playing in the G League, but I think if he's steadily like not getting many minutes, I hope that's something that the team leverages now, just to get him those opportunities. And he already has a ton of G League experience, so just put him in situations to work on what he knows to work on, and then you have a G League team like a mile or two from your stadium, so it's no big deal, really. Just send him down, get some time, and then bring him right back up for whenever the Pistons' next game is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a luxury to actually have the team so close to be able to do that. So, hopefully they do use it. Like I said, on a cold week in January, if you're looking down the schedule and Ron Holland is probably going to get 5 to 10 minutes a night, then you're like, yeah, sure, send him over to the Cruise for a couple of games in there. Maybe have him skip out on a Western road trip or something and just get him a bunch of minutes in the G League. I think that stuff probably will happen. And I just wouldn't be shocked if it does, but it's not going to be the majority of his minutes, I guess, was the only point you and I are trying to get across. But all right, I've been so curious to get your take on Marcus Sasser here. So what have been what's your read, your vibes on Marcus Sasser for these first 3 games of the Summer League?
Okay, we keep doing this, but I feel like it relates a lot here, just bringing up questions that we have that we're going to talk about, but it ties into our conversation. So this one from A Fella in the DBB comments: how do you decide what matters and what doesn't in Summer League? One of the things I think that matters is if you have a second or third year player that has NBA experience, I feel like they should dominate the Summer League. I mean, don't fully write them off or anything if they don't, but I think it's something that you should definitely keep an eye on. And Sasser didn't have good games his first 2 games. Against the Bulls, he came out, then he was 5 for 13, 3 of 5 from 3, 17 points, 3 assists, and 5 steals. So he had a better game. I mean, a couple stinkers, honestly, from the field in his first 2 games against Houston. He got to the line a lot and was 7 for 8 from the line, and also had 8 assists, but 0 for 5 from 3. I feel like we've been talking about Sasser not being a backup point guard or just a point guard in general. I feel like his performance in Summer League is driving that idea home, and I don't think it's what he should be or what he needs to be. It just makes you wonder, like, what is he going to look like on this rotation when you have a Tim Hardaway Jr., when you have a Jaden Ivey who's going to be getting minutes at the 2 spot? Like, where does Marcus Sasser fit into that, or does he?
Yeah, so all right, we're very much aligned. I've been excited for this like all week, so I've just been banking these thoughts and these watching these games until right now for the pin down. But yeah, I am right there with you. I've been pretty concerned actually watching Marcus Sasser. So to answer a fellow's question directly, I think the biggest things that I like to take away out of Summer League are I would say the procedural indicators that a player is just operating at a level higher than everyone else out there on the floor, not necessarily the results. So with Marcus Sasser, I don't care that he's not making as many shots right now. With Ron Holland, I don't care that he was 5 for 15 in his first game. With Ron Holland, like we talked about, what's exciting is the way that he's able to create space. What's not exciting is how he's kind of getting sped up in his process, and he's falling into some bad habits by being more right-hand dominant than he ever was with the Ignite program. Okay, so those are red flags to be aware of. He's also a 19-year-old, and this is his first NBA action. It's expected for him. Marcus Sasser is not making great decisions with and without the basketball. He's not been a great defender for this team so far through these 3 games, and I think when you put all of that on top of him not making shots, it just looks even worse. But the biggest red flag to me is that he's just not processing what's happening in these Summer League games quicker than even, Dennis Jenkins or Bobi Klintman, who's looked like he's even reading the floor better than his point guard. It worries me. I didn't think he was in the rotation coming in to these Summer League games. That hasn't changed. But this is not the player that I thought he was coming out of Houston. And it's very concerning to me that not just that I was wrong, but that he was supposed to be more ready-made, ready to go, an older rookie, plug and play, and it just doesn't look that way.
Yeah, it's tough for any small guard to like it's just a uphill battle. I mean, Marcus Sasser was in a good situation coming from Houston and being like a 4-year guy and everything and being on really good teams, playing good defense and everything. So, yeah, I there's not a lot to take from summer league. I just think some of these things when you're trying to understand how a younger player fits into a rotation when you have all these new guys, you have new draft picks, like what does that look like? The only thing I'm questioning is who is the backup point guard on this team? Like it shouldn't be Marcus Sasser. Is it going to be Jaden Ivey? Is this the spot where you make a transaction with your remaining cap space? Like what does that look like, you think?
Yeah, I think right now it's probably Jaden Ivey. I think that's true whether Jaden Ivey actually ends up starting games or coming off the bench entirely as a point guard. He could fulfill the role both ways there. But I do think they probably should be looking for a third point guard at this spot. Um, and not banking on that being Sasser if Ivy or Cade ends up missing much time with injury. Like I don't know. So YouTube user says that Sasser was just a scorer at Houston, and yeah, he was. But he was very off ball and he was very much a shooter for them. So it's just a completely different I guess, diet of shots that he was taking in Houston than he has been taking for the past year and a half. And gosh, I think you pair that with him not being as impressive, nearly as impressive on defense as he was with Houston as well. I'm more worried than just like the summer league games because I was having these thoughts last season as well. But then the summer league is just like confirming it again to me, and it's not been fun. I've been a little bit bummed with the Marcus Astor. I was so excited for that pick.
Well, I think what YouTube user brings up is Sasser's ideal role at the next level. He should be a microwave scorer off the bench that you can bring in. And we saw him get hot in a handful of games against, didn't he just kill the Milwaukee Bucks last year? Like,
yeah, and then they still lost the game.
Yeah. So if you can lean on him just for that and just at his size, defense is never going to be how he sticks, I guess. The fact that he can be a good defender at his size is definitely a positive, but it's just an uphill battle as a small guard. Like you need to be a really good shooter or scorer alongside that. I think he has the potential to do so. It's just a question mark right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, out of Houston, he was a 3-and-D guard. That's kind of what the rep was. That's what we all thought we were getting. To his credit, I mean, he's shown a lot more wiggle than I think he ever showed at Houston. Both even in these past 3 games, that's been true as well. His little crossover step back thing that he does creates an incredible amount of space every single time he goes into it. So that's great. That's a bankable move. And I just wish that was more of like a break glass in case of emergency and a clock thing rather than something that he goes to frequently throughout the game. But yeah, so hopefully they can get another guard, and let's talk about that because we've kind of gone into it just naturally again. We keep doing this. The flow of this episode is fantastic. But this is Nyan Rouge from the DBB comments says, what if any potential moves would you like to see the Pistons make with their remaining cap space? Is there a free agent you would like them to go sign, or would you rather just kind of have the cap space left over? We both kind of talked about guards, so name a few names, and then if there are any other moves as well, go on. Go.
Yeah, and shout out to the DBB comments. Like in a reply to this comment, they were posting updated lists of free agents who are still available. And the reporter who posted it mentioned that this group of names is likely guys who gambled on themselves, but now are probably more likely to sign a minimum 1 year prove it deal. Tyus Jones at the top of the list. I don't know if he's going to sign for a minimum. I'll be interested to see where he lands, but there's also Markelle Fultz, Isaac Okoro, who's restricted, Lonnie Walker, Luke Kennard. There's still like a lot more names on this list, but Markelle Fultz sort of jumped out to me as if you can get him on a minimum deal as your backup point guard, I would be interested in that. The only other area I could see the team going for with their remaining cap space, however they end up wanting to manage it, if they are doing it for a roster player, is a third big who has size more than like Paul Reed or an Isaiah Stewart. I don't really know if there's that name out there other than like Boban, if you want to go down that route. So the backup guard names are more intriguing to me, but it does seem like, and from everything we've been told through the beat writers and all the reporting that's come out, is Langdon is trying to use as much cap space as possible to take on contracts and get some assets attached alongside it. I don't know what kind of assets you're getting at this point. So if that's on the table, I could see that being the option. But if you have money available and a roster spot available, a backup guard makes sense to me, especially someone that's a Markelle Fultz type player on a minimum, if you could swing that.
Yeah, I would. I love Markelle Fultz. I think he'd be good. I don't know why. Like, if I were him, I wouldn't really walk into this situation where he's probably not going to get minutes, like as a third guard outside of injuries, or sorry, as a third point guard outside of injuries. So, maybe like Dennis Smith Jr. Was on the list. I think you mentioned that's probably a good name for that type of role if they want to go down that route. I do like the idea of a guy like Isaac Okoro, good 3-and-D player. He's got some decent size, but he's a very, very good athlete. I don't really know where he'd fit into the rotation. He's more of like a 2-3 than a pure forward type player, which might be more helpful for more depth at this point if he were a little bit bigger and had more of that size. But that's a name where if they do make a trade, that could be something to follow. Mimic asks if they're going to be penalized if they don't take on more cap. I think they are just a touch under the floor at the moment. So don't quote me on that, but I believe they'll need to make one move final or something like that. I don't think they're going to get penalized. It won't be a problem, but they could, I think, if they just stopped right now.
I think that's a reason they signed Malik Beasley and Fontecchio into cap space, because I think they could have waited and fit those two into exceptions or went over the cap for Fontecchio. But the fact that those signings came out officially, our guy Keith Smith was all over it, like figuring it out. It means that they're signing those guys into cap space, so they count against that number, seemingly, I guess, helping them get closer to the salary floor. But I think you're right. I think there is a touch more to go to get there, but I don't think it's a concern that they're not going to.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about it. And I mean, they're above the floor. YouTube user says that he thinks they're above the floor with Bobi Klintman, which that would be great. They still have an open roster spot, so they're going to do something. It would be unusual to not carry that roster spot. They also have a couple of two-way contracts to hand out, which would be a good idea, I would think, with where this team is. So, still some moves to follow as we move on through the offseason. Let's do this one here from Detroit Van Gogh. It says, after watching some Paul Reed film, he thinks in a bubble that Paul Reed might be the best player to start at center. And then he says that he likes the idea of a lineup with Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Simone Fontecchio, Tobias Harris, and Paul Reed. So you could give thoughts on that lineup if you want. I know last week we did talk about Asar Thompson at the 2 and how both of us didn't really love that. But how about Paul Reed? Do you think that he has any potential, I guess, as like a starting center? And do you agree with that assessment that he could push for that type of role? He is probably the best defensive center, traditionally defensive center on the roster.
I don't think Paul Reed is going to start just because you have already extended Isaiah Stewart, not for anything near the max or anything like that, but you're committed to him if you don't trade him. And also, YouTube user brought it up in the chat, like Langdon and Bickerstaff seem high on Jalen Duren's development. It seems likely that Jalen Duren is going to be the starting center. I won't get too much into it because I know we do have some Jalen Duren questions that we'll be talking about shortly. I just think it might make sense to start Paul Reed just for what he brings defensively. I just think for the long term, if you're not starting Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart when they're both on the team, that says something. And yeah, Wes, you mentioned it. I don't think Asar would start at the 2 in this scenario. I think it should be one of like Ivy or Beasley. But yeah, the 5 spot is the biggest question to me right now. But I think where we're heading is Jalen Duren's going to be the starter. And then we'll Kwame Brown. Shout out to Kwame Brown. But yeah, I don't know. I just think if you don't start one of those 2 young guys that you're working to develop, you've already committed to in some sense, there's something wrong. Not to say Paul Reed isn't worthy. I just think he's better suited coming off the bench or even as a third big if the rotation shakes out that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I wouldn't say that it's likely. I will say that Paul Reed is a very good player. His steal and block numbers, like we talked last episode, are through the roof compared to the 2 guys that the Pistons already had on the roster at center, that being Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. And he's not a bad athlete in space either. I don't think you really would want him like primarily guarding wings or anything like that, but similar to Isaiah Stewart, who could take it on a switch and not look like a fish out of water. You can get that out of Paul Reed with more steals, more blocks. So the defensive potential is there. The kind of sort of lob threat potential on the pick and roll is there. And we had talked about maybe there's something there as a 3-point shooter eventually too. So here's the thing. Like you said, that center position's kind of confusing to get a read on how the minutes are going to shake out. JB Bickerstaff has talked about players earning their minutes. So if Paul Reed shows up to camp and is the best center on this roster, I think he will start basketball games. I don't know if he's going to be. I don't know if that's how it's going to shake out. But all 3 of them have weaknesses that they need to work on. And whichever of those 3 can kind of minimize those weaknesses the quickest, I think is the one that's going to get the starting minutes. So I would not, at this point, say that I'm confident any of them are going to be the starting center on game 1. I really don't know how it's going to shake out. But I do feel pretty confident that whoever's the best in practice is going to get the first crack at it. So that I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you're starting Paul Reed, not to say he won't start at games at certain points throughout the season, but if he's your opening night starter over Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, and they're both on the team, I feel like that is just like a wake up moment, and also kind of just like what is the team doing here if they don't think highly of either of these guys, at least to give them the starts out of the gate. Like what is the future for either of them? I mean, I don't think there's really a world where Paul Reed starts on opening night, but if he does, that would just be like a wow moment to me.
Well, yeah, and like, look, if that does happen, all right, if that does happen, then hopefully that's the wake up call that Stewart or Duren need, to really kick it into gear. If Paul Reed kicked their butts in practice every day through training camp and preseason, like, yeah, he's probably going to start. I don't know if it's likely. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying that I do think that the best player is going to get the first chance to go out and prove that they are that. And look, this coach and this GM did not draft either Isaiah Stewart or Jalen Duren. There is no sunk cost thing here other than for maybe like Tom Gorse, who's not going to be involved in any of these decisions at all. So if truly Paul Reed, as shocking as it would be, was the best player through camp and earned the right to start in game one, it would be wrong not to have him start just because, Jalen Duren is 20 and has a lot of potential, or we just gave Isaiah Stewart that big extension. Like this brain trust didn't do any of that. So at this point, it's about going out and trying to put a good basketball product out on the court. And however you can do that, whichever lineups let you do that, that's what's going to get played. And the competition's not a bad thing at all. I said right at the start here was, if that happens, then hopefully it's kind of a oh crap moment for those two guys. Like, it's not going to get handed to me and I got outplayed. Now I have to go outplay him. Iron sharpens iron. I think it'd be a good thing. Just overall, the competition's a good thing. Not that it would be a good thing for Paul Reed to win that competition. Sorry, I need to make that clear.
No, and if he does, I would also hope the front office thinks about that and is just like, what are we doing here? And maybe moves on from at least one of your front court guys that you've committed to, not saying they need to do it immediately, just something that should be evaluated if there's any shot that happens in real life.
All right, let's just enter into the Jalen Duren section of this podcast for the next few minutes because we got a few questions about that. So we'll start here. This is Wally in the DBB comments. Says, is it really fair to say that Jalen Duren at 20 years old is a complete lost cause on defense? He says that there were many cases of young bad defenders improving. Why should we assume Jalen Duren cannot?
So there was a lot of conversation about this in the DBB comments, and one thing, they were all over everything this week, which was great. One thing that was brought up, which I thought was interesting, is on James Edwards and Vince Goodwill's podcast. Vince was bringing up this week that he talked to Jalen Duren. I believe it was at Team USA camp when Jalen Duren was playing with the select team, how Jalen Duren essentially just said how he didn't bring it on defense this past season. I believe the exact question he was asked is like why he didn't get as many blocks. And Duren, I guess, based on what Vince said, he mentioned that Duren still talks to Monty and he's still they have a relationship, which I thought was interesting too. It just doesn't really matter here. I think if Jalen Duren does have this defensive ability like under his belt right now, and it just wasn't brought out last year for whatever reason it was. I know we saw it in the first few games and he was dealing with ankle injuries and just wasn't a good defender for the rest of the season, really. I'm willing to give him some time to show that is actually the case. Wes, we've talked about reasons why maybe Duren isn't a good defender just in general. Like he's still very young. He still has the opportunity to bring that out. It's just, I don't think, not to speak for you, but I don't think either of us think he's going to magically develop a jump shot at some point. So if he's not a positive defender, that's an issue. So yes, he's young. He should have some grace to be able to improve it. Last season was bad, but I'm willing to at least give him some time to work on those things, but he has to show it fairly soon. Like, I'm going to be looking closely at the first 10 games and whatever different increments to see what he's doing. And like what is being brought up in the comments, Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff have talked a ton about Jalen Duren. So it seems like he is more likely than not going to be the starting center, at least on opening night, and probably for the majority of the season, depending on what everything ends up looking like. But I'm willing to give him some time, is my point.
Well, all right. So there's a lot there. We're going to unpack it. There's not a lot. It won't take too long. With the interview thing, I do just want to know both Bickerstaff and Langdon have talked about Jalen Duren quite a bit. They've also been asked a lot of questions about Jalen Duren. Like the same thing happened with the Caden Ivey starting but being staggered thing. That was a question about Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell and how that might apply to Caden Ivey. It wasn't like he just brought that up out of the blue, right? So most of these conversations where they're talking about these players, the players they have on the team, they're getting asked about them. So of course they're talking about it. Like, I don't think it's good or bad. It's just hard to read much into it. But look, directly to the question from Wally, and I think it's a good one. Is he a complete lost cause on defense? I would not say that he is. I think that the question, like you mentioned, is how good can he eventually get, right? So are there in the past, have there been a ton of big men who have been awful defenders through their first two seasons, which, hopefully Duren also told Vinny Goodwill that he wasn't bringing it in his rookie year either, because that was a problem as well. This defense wasn't good in either year. So it wasn't just a last year thing. That's important. But have there been big men that have been this bad and then have become very good defenders? I think that list is exceptionally small. Just regular good defenders, it's probably a little bit bigger. But if you just asked about getting to neutral, I think I would hope that a guy with that athletic ability could eventually get to neutral one day on defense. The problem is, like you mentioned, you can't shoot. So if you're going to play the center position, you either have to be really good as a shooter or a really good defender for success in the NBA right now. And ideally, you're going to do both. Duren right now has got neither. If he could figure out one, then all of these questions go away. But both of them are, to get above average at, to be good enough at where it cancels out the other, is the question, I think, for Jalen Duren moving forwards. And the track record of former players is just not all that great for either case for him. So I think it's a red flag. But that's all. Like, if he's going to come off the bench long term, most of this goes away. It's just because we're looking at him as hopefully a starter and a guy that can lock down that center position for, the next 7 years. And so it's a much more difficult question and a much higher standard that he's got to be held to. That's all.
How good do you think he has to be as a defender to be the center of the future? Like, I think we're both on the same page that he is very capable of at least getting somewhere to neutral. I think we're also on the same page that he needs to go something above that, but how much above that do you think he's capable of? Because I'm with you. I'm not expecting him to come out and just all of a sudden be a top tier defender. I think he can get somewhere to the middle, and really just the swing for me is how much more he can get above that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's really a metric for me that would really answer that either in the positive or negative. Like, I keep bringing up the stocks, but it's just because it's obvious. Defense is a lot more complex to that. I would say, though, contextually, if we ever get to a point where you're watching a game and you're very comfortable when a drive gets funneled towards Jalen Duren, I think that's when it's like, okay, yeah, it's no longer going to be an issue. We don't have to worry about the defense anymore. He's now above average enough that they can get away with this and all of his other benefits, the things that he does really well, like the offensive rebounding, his pick and roll chemistry with Cade Cunningham, all that stuff really gets to shine. We don't get any of the negatives anymore. Okay. I don't know exactly what thresholds need to be cleared in order to get to that level. But right now, if someone gets blown by on the wing and the help just kind of shuffles him towards the center of the floor instead of a full cutoff, like if Jalen Duren's the last line of defense, I am nervous. I think that has been a bucket more often than it's not. So that needs to change. Bottom line.
And if what he said about he just didn't bring it last year is truly the case, I think that's something that went back to his college days. I remember we talked and
his first
Bryce,
year.
Yeah, Bryce brought up one of the things on his scout was just the motor. So I guess another question I have is how easy do you think that element of it is to fix? If you like know that's something that you need to improve on, like can you just go out there and do it, or is there more to it than just that? And even Trajan Langdon and JB have talked about defense has to be a thing that you want to do.
Yeah, it's very hard. You're not teaching, from my experience, which is admittedly not at the NBA level, so it's very different, and I won't try to say that it is. But when you get to that point, you're teaching a player how to play the game of basketball, not necessarily like a physical skill, like dribbling the basketball or when to pass to who and when, all that kind of stuff, but like literally your approach. I will say that it's possible to work on it. I do think your energy and effort is a skill. It's one of the most important skills you can have as a player, especially at like the younger levels. Anyone listening's got like kids in travel basketball, like if you could get them to be high energy, high effort players, that goes a really, really long way. And that's a skill that you can work on. It's just such like a basic skill. It's your habits with everything every day for 24 hours that you're trying to now change for a guy who's already in the NBA. It's just really, really difficult the older and older a player gets. So it could be done. It's a skill like anything else. I gotta imagine it's very, very difficult.
And Mimsy brings it up in the chat, like a 28 game losing streak definitely wears on you. Maybe having a better team, a team that competes more often than they did last year helps with that. The only thing I struggle with is we knew this is something that was on the page during his pre-draft year, but I agree. If the team's a little bit better, like maybe that is a motivator. I don't know what you want to call it, because a lot of the good defenders out there who may not be as good on the offensive end talk about all the time that they want their defense to turn into offense. So I think if like the team is competing more, maybe that does bring another element of it, which shouldn't be the case. But after a historically bad season, maybe that was a little bit of it as well.
Yeah, that's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess, because like, yeah, absolutely, these guys are human. Once they lost 28 games in a row, like I'm sure, breakfast in the morning didn't taste right, and nothing was going right in their lives during that losing streak. These are people, and if you've played any sports at any level, like you get it, you feel it the same way, and it's just even more so at the NBA level when the guys are that competitive. So yeah, absolutely. But then, at the same time, for the most part, it seems to me that within an individual season, guys are wired the way they're wired. So, like Cade really didn't change his approach through all 82 games, right? It's I don't know, the effort really isn't something that swings too much, but it could definitely weigh on you more and affect performance in other ways. I think. But let's get into this one from Team Raf. It was kind of a cool one for him, and I know he's another my statistician, so I always got to give him a little shout out for that. I appreciate it. But so he says this is the positive end on Jalen Duren, but he says, do you know what has the highest correlation to the Pistons winning a game last season? The answer was Jalen Duren having a 20-point double-double. It says there were 10 such instances, and the Pistons won 8 of them. So what do you think about that stat there?
We work with some character limits with these questions, so he also included a couple other nuggets. I think one of them was how bad the Pistons record was when Jalen Duren was hurt. They were like 1-20 or something. I don't quote me on that because my numbers aren't exact, but he also mentioned that among team stats, the strongest correlation to the Pistons wins was defensive rating and correlated to opponents' free throw attempts. And defensive rating, that's just team points allowed per 100 possessions. So the scoring average, and Wes, you brought this up in your notes, like good defenses don't foul a lot. So yeah, I thought these were good points, and we know that Jalen Duren's a great rim runner. He's a great rebounder, and it doesn't shock me when he goes off like this. The team is in better situations to win. I mean, it opens things up for everyone else, and Duren's just a lot to handle in the paint, no matter what. So I'm not shocked, but yeah, this was some good research from Team Raf.
Yeah, real good. The only reason I put the note in there was just because it's like a double effect with the free throw thing. So it's good to note that's basically just good defense means the Pistons would win games, which also really tracks too as well if you think about it. So looking at the Pistons specific stats, which this was, when the Pistons held the team to less points, they tended to win more games. Makes sense with an offense that wasn't exactly a world beater. But look, I think a lot of this is fun. It's just really tough when the team won 14 games to go look and say, oh, well, in 8 of those wins, Duren had a 20-10 night. Like, okay, yeah, great. They really lacked talent on this roster. I bet a lot of other guys had some pretty big games those nights too, or maybe the other team was really off. Like at this point, looking at the season, like those 14 wins are almost the outliers to every other game that went on through the course of the year. So it's always tough for me I shouldn't say it's always tough. It's been difficult for me to take much away from the wins that the Pistons had last season. Because if they won 10 more games and 16 of them came with Jalen Duren 20-10 nights, then I'd really be buying into this. But they didn't. And I don't know what the actual takeaway is.
And I wonder that this is cheating, so I'm not actually being serious, but maybe you could also just filter out that 2-1 start because what was going on there?
We still don't know what was going on for those 2 games. I wouldn't look back, man. Sometimes I just look back through all of our podcasts that we've done, and the excitement that you and I had and that the fans had on like that second podcast we did right after that first week was through the roof. It was, and then to just know immediately after that, it just went to hell.
The amount of Are the Pistons Good podcasts and articles and everything is it has to be through the roof. Hey, if it happens again, the same thing will happen. Those were an exciting 3 games, so it's not to write them off or anything like that. It's just Jalen Duren got hurt after that. And everything fell apart. So yeah.
All right, let's get through these next 2 ones quickly because we're running low on time. One more Jalen Duren question This is from sponsored by Lloyd's in the DVB comments. Says, why is the general assumption that Jalen Duren and Tobias Harris is going to be the starting front court when Isaiah Stewart is a better option in his opinion? So, what do you think? Does Isaiah Stewart have an argument here to be the starting center? I know we talked about Paul Reed as kind of the out of left field situation, but what about Stewart?
I just think, and we've talked about this for a lot, that Stewart's perfect role in the NBA, whether it's as a Piston or anywhere else, if he gets traded, is the backup five. So I'd love to see him in that context. Yes, Isaiah Stewart can shoot it a lot better than Jalen Duren can. So if you want to prioritize Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart allows you to do that. But I don't know. I think Jalen Duren, he gives you the rebounding, he gives you the rim running. He's a lot to handle in the paint. So, and it just seems like he's your third year center now that you have to figure out. One, is he going to improve in the areas that everyone knows that he needs to take a step in? So just give him some time to do that. And I don't think Isaiah Stewart is a starting five, and I don't know if he necessarily should be. I think he should be playing the five, but I think it should be in a first big off the bench role.
I'm with you. I think the challenge with even the question we were talking about earlier about Paul Reed is that I'm not sure which of those three is the best basketball player today. Jalen Duren is by far the most talented athlete and individual of the three, but in terms of like actual on-court basketball performance, it's kind of a take your pick on what you value the most. So if you want that floor spacing and that really great switchability, and you don't value the athletic ability as much, then yeah, Isaiah Stewart is definitely your best option out of those three, but that doesn't mean that he's the best center on the roster by any stretch. Jalen Duren is a much better rebounder and a much better lob threat. And then the best all-around defender is probably at this point Paul Reed, and he's maybe got a little bit of the floor spacing stuff too. So it just kind of depends on what you want. Like I said earlier, I'm not I wouldn't say that the assumption that it's going to be Duren and Harris is 100% correct. I mean, Harris, it's definitely going to be what it is, but I mentioned the competition thing. I think that's going to be real. But it could be Duren and Harris. I think that would make a lot of sense. Could be Stewart and Harris. It could be out of left field and Paul Reed and Harris. It just kind of depends on, like you mentioned, what do you want to do with the star? Do you want Jaden Ivey in the starting lineup, or do you really want Malik Beasley out there who's going to shoot 43% from three? Is Fontecchio going to start instead of Asar Thompson? Then maybe you feel really, really comfortable with Duren. It's kind of a choose your own adventure at this point for JB Bickerstaff, and I'm very intrigued to see what he does, assuming that these three guys are all going to be on the roster. Oh, you're muted. Hey, you know what?
I
think that's the first time you've done it.
Yeah, wow. Hey, at least we're not counting my work calls, because I probably do that. My average is way up on that. But I have just have in my head Jalen Duren's going to be the starting center. I think if you want to play Asar Thompson right away, I just don't think he's as ready. And YouTube user brought it up in the chat. Jalen Duren provides a great pick and roll threat. Thank you, MC. Sorry if I butchered how your name is, but yeah, Jalen Duren provides a pick and roll threat for Cade, which definitely helps open what he's doing and puts him in the best possible situations, which is really what all this should be about. You just gave him a max extension. So you want to put the best surrounding players around him. And also you want to figure out, of your young pieces, which can thrive alongside Cade in the long haul. So I think we have to figure that out with Jalen Duren. it's just so tough with like the Duren Thompson combo because we know that they're both non-shooters, and if they're both part of your long-term future, is there ever going to be a point where you can start both of them next to Cade or in general? Yeah, I don't think there is either. So what do you do there? Is Asar just a bench player for the long haul? If he is, okay, but I don't know if that's what you want him to be. But yeah, in my mind, I've just penciled Jalen Duren is as the starting five right now, and give him some time to see what he looks like defensively, and then go from there. If it's what we saw last year, you have Isaiah Stewart who can start games for you. You have Paul Reed. You're lacking some size there, but you at least know that they're going to bring something defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you said with like looking at the long term has me extremely intrigued as to what Trajan Langdon's going to do over the next couple of years. Because, yeah, I mean, barring something unforeseen, which would be either Asar Thompson or Jalen Duren becoming good 3-point shooters. Well, actually, not even that. Just not being awful non 3-point shooters, where you don't even want them to attempt it at this point. You'd rather they just like dribble into traffic, or maybe throw the ball out of bounds so you don't have a long rebound. Um, but as long as that's the case, then one of them's going to be a long-term bench piece or not on the roster. So how you navigate that's going to be, I don't know, it's a storyline to follow, and it's going to build over time, which those are the most fun ones to watch develop. Let's do this one just quickly. Admittedly, I do not have a very good answer on this, so I'm just going to throw it to you, and I'm going to be learning as much as all the listeners and our guy, a fella here in the chat. So he says, what is the dossier on some of these assistant coaches? Do any of them come with a known offensive strategy? And are there more hires that are imminent?
Yeah, I'm not going to act like I know more than anyone here either. Like, I'm wondering the same thing. The only name that sticks out to me is what is Luke Walton going to bring? We know he spent that time in Golden State, and he's been on JB Bickerstaff's staffs. Wow, that was a tongue twister to say. But yeah, maybe he'll bring something eventually. What I think is really interesting about the staff is just some of the keepers that they've had. I know it's not like totally rare, but I feel like it's more rare than not that you do have some stays from the previous regime. We know Jarrett Jacks, the head coach of the summer league team. I also noticed Jamel McMillan, who came over with Monty and was the head coach of the Crews last year. He's been on the Pistons bench for the summer league. So I'm assuming that he's going to be on the staff as well, whether it's still with the Crews. And his dad, Nate McMillan, was hired as a assistant on JJ Redick's staff. So I didn't know what was going on there. I think those two keepers are interesting, especially with Jarrett Jack. I know through some of the reporting that's gone on out there that he's built a great relationship with some of those guys. So I think it's important to build some sort of consistency with all the young guys that you have in house. And that's a lot to ask for Jarrett Jack, but it seems like he's at least helping with that, and then putting a staff in place around it that's going to help with your development. All the talk we've done about Fred Vinson, he's probably the most important one for offensively, whether I don't know if he's going to like technically an assistant coach or not. But yeah, that's probably the name to note here for offense, and how someone in this regime who's going to make everything work. From what we're hearing, like, it has to be him, and he has the pedigree to do it. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I was really happy to see Jarrett Jack back. I liked him as a player. He was fun to watch, and it was really cool actually to hear. I don't know if you caught it, but JB Bickerstaff, and I think it was the Rockets game, was doing like a mid-game interview with the broadcast team for, I think it was NBA TV. And he was talking about how he actually scouted Jarrett Jack in the pre-draft workout, so that their relationship
Yes.
goes all the way back to that. That was pretty cool. I don't know. I love hearing some of that stuff with these guys that have been around it for so long. And then
And he said it was like the best pre-draft workout
yeah,
ever, right? I forget all the names that were there, but it
right.
was like a cool one. I think Raymond Felton was one. I don't know why that's the name that I'm
No, I
remembering,
think you're
but
right. I think it might have been the Raymond Felton, like Darren Williams and Chris Paul,
yes.
and then our guy Piston legend now, Jarrett Jack. Who, hey, look, he did have a long NBA career, not to the success level of any of those other three guys, but he was a good player for a long time. So yeah, I don't know. That was really the only big thought I had about the staff getting put together. I was just happy to see Jarrett Jack back. Seems like a riser, worker, works hard, and he was a point guard. Those point guards are just meant to be coaches.
Yeah, and all I like I just need every time you hear like the Pistons talked about in national media, you just hear like Fred Vinson's name get brought
Yeah.
up. So if this like maybe it wouldn't be Fred Vinson's fault and these guys are just bad shooters, like that's what they are, but man, he has his work cut out for him, and if some of these guys like don't improve there, I feel like that would really say something. It's just like for all the talk around Fred Vinson, like, man, I don't want to push anything to happen sooner than it should or could, but we have to have something there, I think, for all the chatter around
Well,
it.
he's not going to be a miracle worker
I
play.
know, but that's what he's been made out to be.
That's
Like
true. That
any
is very
time
true.
the Pistons rarely get any national media coverage, but now when they do, uh, you're gonna hear Fred Vinson's name probably, which from everything I know is for a good reason.
Yeah.
It's just what's it gonna look like in Detroit?
I'm really hopeful that, and we can end on this, but I'm really hopeful that he's going to be a guy, Fred Vincent, that is, that takes the pretty good shooters on the roster and helps guide them into being great shooters. So, like Cade Cunningham, if Cade Cunningham can push up to like 37, 38% on 7 or 8 threes a game instead of the 35 on 6 a game that he's been at, like, oh, that's a game changer if you could get that. Like get Jaden Ivey up to league average. Get like Fontecchio even higher. Like maybe he's a Kyle Korver type piece. That would just be incredible. So, and I think those are much more reachable goals. Take what's already good, make it great. And I'm looking. I hope that that's some stuff that we could see happen.
Yeah, and we talk about Asar, like what's realistic for him to do with Asar,
Hopefully
but
30% one day. That's my goal. I don't know how long it'll take, but hopefully we can get there.
yeah, but like Herb Jones wasn't known as a shooter coming out
Wasn't this bad?
and it shot. Yeah, I know. Trust me,
For all
I
the
know.
listeners, I
Okay,
got to give
let's.
Blake a hard time because Blake was really, really high on Asar Thompson, and rightfully so, because almost everything that he said about Asar was right, and I was wrong about, except the jump shot. So I got to rub
Okay,
it in a little when I can. That's all.
no, I appreciate that, and yeah, it's like, man, it's rough, but we can take the hope for whatever Vincent does with Asar and maybe move that over to Ron Holland because I think that's a more
Yes.
realistic one.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
we'll see. He has his work cut out for him, but like, man, I'm excited to see what he does for all that it's been talked about.
Absolutely. So let's wrap it up there, Blake. Thank you for scheduling here with me with all the time change stuff. This has been a fun show as always. So appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Oh man, thank you for joining. Lord knows what hour it is where
2
you are
a.m.
right now. So 2 a.m.
We're having a
Okay,
good
no
time
no
over
big
here
deal.
overseas. It's fun.
We are. Hey, Summer League doesn't sleep. So I appreciate you for staying on with us and appreciate everyone who joined live. Reminder, we didn't get any voicemail questions this week, but you can always call our number to ask a question, hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And I brought this up if you're watching with us live on YouTube, listening on the podcast feed, or catching up on the video, please hit the subscribe button on the Detroit Bad Boys channel. We're trying to push that 1,000 subscribers number. We have some work to do, but we got some after that last week. So thank you all for doing that. And special thanks to our guy, Sean Court, managing editor over at Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. Shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.